friend coaxed me out of drumming retirement to do a gig with her, and I fired up my TD-10s to practice, and they didn't work. And I figured, you know what? Maybe 25 years or so, maybe I should upgrade my E-drums. And I settled on the V71 as a good candidate, but I couldn't find any information about whether I could use all my old pads and cables, which still work. So I embarked on this journey, and it turns out everything pretty much worked. There were a few surprises along the way, and I thought I would make this video for anyone else in the same situation. All right, time to get started. I bought the V71 on Amazon, and it was fulfilled by Sweetwater, and everything went smoothly. Everything arrived and was in good shape and well packed. My first disappointment was discovering that the V71 used an external transformer. The TD-10 just used a normal AC plug, and the transformer was internal. I just hate having to remember to carry and keep track of these things. The second thing I found really surprising is this $3,000 device doesn't come with a mounting bracket. You have to pay for that separately. I still had my TD-10, and luckily the mounting bracket from that fits the V71. So if you're upgrading, keep that in mind and don't throw away your old mounting bracket. The V71 is bigger than the TD-10. In this photo, I don't think it looks a lot larger, but in real life, it sure feels that way. My plan is to do more in-depth videos on this unit, so I'll limit myself here to just saying the construction and feel of the unit and the controls is really good. The one thing I never liked about playing my TD-10s was the hi-hat and cymbals. For practice, it was okay, but for playing live gigs, it just felt like a big step down from playing acoustics. I decided to splurge on some of the newer rides and hi-hats that Roland developed. The first thing I unpacked was the VH14. I was pleasantly surprised and curious that I got an unbranded drum key with the hi-hat. You can also see here the USB cable for connecting the hi-hats, and another package we'll look at in a minute, and the reason for the drum key. The top cymbal came with its own clutch already attached, and of course it had the bottom cymbal. Under the initial packaging were two stereo cables that connect to the bottom cymbal. The top cymbal had cables that were attached permanently on one end, which was another unpleasant surprise. It seems like a bad cable will require more than a simple short cable replacement. The bottom cymbal has some hardware and the USB cable. Inside the bottom cymbal are two female ends for the cables from the top cymbal and a movable piston-like cylinder that I assume triggers sounds when you close the hi-hat with your foot. I've moved the kit weekly for rehearsals in the last several months, but I never take the two hi-hats apart. I just move them as a pair. I don't have to mess with those interior cables. Hopefully, this will prolong their life. The final package contains spacers and a cable tie and a clamp designed to keep the hi-hats from rotating while you play. The hi-hats are not equally sensitive for 360 degrees, so getting them aligned and keeping them aligned is important. This little piece is proving to be a bit of a pain point for me. I have two hi-hat stands, one in the rehearsal space and one at home. The first time I did move this device between the two stands, but they require different spacers, and taking this device on and off is just more trouble than it's worth. When rehearsing, I just straighten the hi-hats every now and then. When playing live, I take my home stand that has this mechanism attached. The hi-hats have little black on black, very difficult to see dots on the top and the bottom hi-hat to help you keep them aligned. I grabbed a silver Sharpie and colored those dots in to make the process a bit easier. It is recommended that you keep your hi-hats flat and parallel. The USB cable feels pretty robust and has a plastic hinge that locks the two pieces together. They suggest using a cable tie to secure the short end of the cable to your hi-hat stand. I used these plastic ties they provided once, but I'm taking and moving this every week, and I found them too hard to use, so I replaced them with much easier to use Velcro ties. There is also an illuminated button on the bottom of the hi-hat that the manual says is reserved for future use. When you go to the digital section of the trigger setup in the V71, this button blinks for some reason. I guess it's reminding you that it's there, but has nothing to do. Again, I have to do a more in-depth video on the VH14, but there are many out there already, and my general impression is extremely favorable. The new CY-16R digital ride is less complex with just a single USB cable to worry about. It also has a rotation prevention hardware piece that goes on the top of your cymbal stand. I use a variety of cymbal boom arms, and I haven't had an issue with this, although some of the devices like those silicone sleeves that prevent wear and tear no longer fit. I also picked up a CY-16R T cymbal, and one warning here is that the sound module does not support 2 rides. I've been surprised that I can't get any kind of reliable benefit from the fact that this cymbal has 2 feeds. When I connect the feed to the bell port and plug it into the bell TRS port on the back of the V71, nothing happens. I'm guessing that the CY-18DR is overriding that input. When I plug it into a different connector like aux1, it kind of sort of works. I can't reliably get a trigger for the bell versus triggering the bow or edge of the cymbal. So I ended up using it just as a crash with just a single cable. To me, there's no reason to get a CY-16R T if you're getting a CY-18DR. Just get one of the less expensive crashes. One final piece of new gear I want to mention is since I'm moving this weekly, I wanted to protect the V71. It turns out Harbor Freight and some Amazon sellers have a case that just fits. At Harbor, it's called the Apache 4800, and it strikes me as really rugged. After I customized the pick and pull foam to fit the module and the power transformer, I sprayed the foam with Plastidip so it would stand up better. There are various YouTube videos that show you how to do that. So that's it for the new gear. You can see my old TD-10 setup. I'm using 2 of the 3 PD-120s. The new module works with all 3. I just don't need it for this gig. I have 2 PD-100s and a PD-7 I use for both an additional crash and special effects. I've also used the PD-9 pad here, and it works equally well. The kick at home is the KD-8, and I also use the KD-7. They both work fine. They do require different setups in the triggering, so I have separate banks for those. And speaking of which, the triggering does support the concepts of banks. The first 7 were predefined for various Roland kits, and I'm pretty sure I could just override these, but I decided to just use the first user bank for my settings. For the kick, I was able to select KD-8. The PD-120 mapped over to the PD-12X, the PD-100 mapped to the PD-10X, the digital ones mapped themselves, and there was no PD-7, so in the list I just used the PD-8. For each non-digital pad, I went into the basic tab and manually adjusted the sensitivity so that hitting my hardest would give me the 127 max value. This was especially important on the kick drum, and that trigger sensitivity will depend on where you place your beater. When I set up my KD-8 for double bass, I have to adjust the sensitivity. That's all for this video. I do want to go into some depth on using the V71. I've read the 3 manuals that came with the unit, customized it extensively over the last 4 months, and learned some interesting things about it, and some of it is not so obvious. If you have specific questions you would like answered, put them in the comments and I'll see if I can get to those. In the meantime, if you have an old Roland kit and want to upgrade, I'm pretty sure the V31 and 51 will work much like the 71, with the exception that it doesn't use individual cables. It uses that specialty DD25 cable that I hate. Rock in peace.